Okay, let's resize this a little bit here. We were talking last review. I talked about how to set up a page. Basically, let me bring this into view here. Basically, it's this one. What I did is I modified it a little bit. I played with the wrapper. I changed the wrapper background color to be light gray so that you could see it over this blue field. I also added some fake navigation links here, and I kind of squared it up a little bit. Let me just talk about that for a second. Normally, well, let me just keep this over here for a second. If you notice in the sample, the banner was right up the top here because in the wrapper we didn't have any content. So how do I overcome that? Well, actually, what I did was in a division for that wrapper, I added this ASCII character. It's called a non-broken space, and you can use this in Dreamweaver. And basically, it tells the browser, "Hey, I'm going to have some content here, but it's actually an empty spot, a placeholder, so to speak." And that the format of that is ampersand NBSP and then the semicolon, and that tells it the browser, "I just want an empty spot here." And then in the wrapper, I had to define the font size of 0 because obviously I didn't want any. I'm not going to put any text there, but obviously I didn't want it to take up any space. But basically, I have an empty placeholder here just so that I can kick down so this banner acts normally, and I have content in here defined in that wrapper, and the banner can be that 5-pixel squared off measurement that we wanted symmetrically around here. And then the banner, if you remember, I had the margin of 5 pixels all around. Normally, if I didn't have any content in the wrapper, the browser would say, "Hey, there is no content there, so I'm going to start that first division right at the 0 point, right at the top of the browser." I didn't want that. So if you put an empty spot in this wrapper, it kicks everything down and everything works normally the way you want it to. That's how I overcame that position so that I can have a symmetrical border of 5 pixels all the way around here. So that's what that looks like. Now, what I want to talk about is the padding. Notice that the cell has some padding over here. The navigation links would have padding there. There is no padding in the content. Let's talk about that because I don't want it right up to the edge of that division. That looks kind of odd. So the way we do that is we have the content here in the division for the content. And now in the style sheet portion, the way we do that is to put the term called margin. Now I'm going to kick that over here. I'm sorry. It's called padding. So I'm going to type padding, and then you can define it any width you want. So for the sake of this tutorial, let's just do 5 pixels. Now, when I click Save, I want you to notice something. What we're actually doing is we're saying 5 pixels all around. So I want 15 pixels rather. 15 pixels for the padding inside, top and bottom, and so forth. If I click here, you can see that automatically shifting down. So it's 15 pixels from the top, 15 pixels from the side, and the right side and the bottom, and so forth. So all your content's going to be shifted over. But now look what happens. Again, this is the browser, the actual browser view. And Windows is doing some weird things here. So let's just click refresh. I have the padding. The text is shifted over 15 pixels from the left, 15 pixels from the right, but look what happened. The box is also extended because it had to accommodate that extra 15 pixels. And obviously that's not what I want. It's 15 pixels longer and so forth. Actually, what happens is it's 15 pixels here, but it's also 15 pixels there. So it's actually 30 in both dimensions. So to accommodate that, I have to go back up to my content overall measurement. It's no longer 700, but take 30 away from that. It's actually 670. And then the height, we have to adjust that as well. Now, I'm going to click Save, and now look what happens when I refresh the browser. Come on, there we go. Look what happens when I refresh the browser. There we go. That would work better. And then I'm going to extend this. That way you can see it. This is going to shift over, and it should be symmetrical with that, and this should shift back up, and this footer should be back up where it belongs. Let's see if that worked. Yes, it did. So now I took off 30 pixels this way, 30 pixels that way, That way this element, the footer, gets back up where it should be. And that way you can have the text off the sides and top of the content window. Now you can do the same thing for the banner up top here, or you could have just a logo, whatever works for you. So that's how you adjust the padding of the text, so it doesn't have to be right up against the edges of the boxes that you're creating in your design. So there's a lot you can do, and that's how you adjust the margins of the box itself and the padding of the content within that box. You notice that the links here, let's talk about that for a minute. In the navigation, I didn't have any padding indicated, but how come the links are shifted over? Well, actually, in the navigation itself, I used an element called an unordered list. That has a kind of it includes its own padding, so to speak, because when you have an unordered list, it actually puts these little bulleted items on there. Now, to create a hyperlink for that inside the list item, I would, it could be either inside or outside, but you can use another tag, the anchor tag, and the attribute is the ahref, and then you have equals, and then whatever the link is, page2.html, for example, and then you end the quotes. And then at the end here, this would be what you click on. This is the text that you click on. So after that text that you selectable text, then you would put the end anchor tag. Whoops! And what I did was here, I forgot the bracket there. So you have ahref equals, and then this is the file name that's going to get clicked. That this link clicks and selects and opens up. So this is a selectable text, and that's the actual page link. Now if I save this, I want to show you what that looks like. I'm going to refresh my browser again, and notice that the link, the link really didn't change, and it should have, there it is. Okay, computer was a little slow. So I have, this is now a selectable link. Notice that the mouse changes when you hover over it. Now what about this link color? I really want this blue field here. By default, the browsers are going to have this kind of bluish link color for the links. How do I change that? Well, you can go, there are things called pseudo elements, and in a style sheet, whether internal or external, you can have a pseudo link, and that is again used with the anchor tag. And you can say, all the link colors are going to be a certain color. Now, what the format of this is. I'm sorry. The format of this link can be defined as so. We have a. Whoops. I'm sorry. That is wrong here. A link, and then you have the curly bracket, and then you can define the color from there. So the color can be anything that you want. Let's choose red, for example, or you can have the hex color. The choice is actually up to you. Now this is going to apply to all of the hyperlinks within the document. If you want it, you can also, there are other pseudo links that you can say. For example, I can have it change to a different color when I hover over it. Let's just save this for a second and show you what that looks like. And there we go. So now the link color is red. What happens if I want to change it to another color when I hover over it? Well, you can do the same thing for, instead of link, it would be hover, and then curly bracket, green, for example, which is going to be extremely ugly, but for the sake of this sample here. So now when I hover over it, the link changes color. So that's just one way of changing, the way the links work. Now you can also get rid of this underline as well. You can actually style it pretty much any way you want. But that's an example of how to change the links in the navigation itself. If you don't want this blue box, you can also have a background color or a background image. And I'm just going to put this on hold, pause here. I have actually an image that we can use here if I can find it. Okay, I did find the image. So what I actually did is, this is the directory. This is the page that we're working on. I had actually used this image in a couple of other demonstrations. I put this image in the same root folder as this page file, so that way we don't have to deal with directories. So the way we do that is, in the navigation, we have the background color of blue. Well, we can also do background image, and that is defined. Notice if you type background, all of these options come up. I'm going to actually choose image. Now, if you click browse, you can browse to the image that you want to have. So I'm going to click OK. Notice that it gives you the format of URL space, and then in brackets, not the curly brackets, but the normal brackets, is the image itself. If I wanted to include this image that was actually in an image folder, you would just type the name of the folder and then a slash, and then that's where the image is. Now it's not going to find it there because it's not in that folder, but that's how you declare to put a background image in a folder that is in another place. Now when I do this, obviously this pink link is not, or the red link rather, is not going to show up very well. However, again, for demonstrations, let's just see what this does. And there we go. So here's your background image. Now obviously it's repeating. How do I get the repeat to turn off? Well, there is another command. It's called background repeat. Now there it is. And the option for that would be obviously none, no repeat. Semicolon, save. Let's look at this. There we go. So now we're back to one, just one image. Now these links are really disturbing here. So we can actually just go back and change the color from red to, well, I wouldn't choose this, but we can do purple and save. There we go. So now it's different colors. So it's not that easy to make any modifications that you have to. Also, you could change, obviously you would modify this image, but that's just one way of dealing with the navigation and using background images inside of a division. Notice that it doesn't extend up into the banner portion or into the content or even into the footer. Depending on how big this whole division is here, this navigation box, that's what is going to accommodate the image. The image is not going to scale to the box. The image would just kind of chop off where it is. If this division were this big, that's how much of the image you would see. So you have to keep that in mind when you're designing the image, for the background image for any type of division, and you can go from there. So that's how to put background images inside of divisions and have a background color as well. And again, that's what that looks like. The background color, background image, and then we say no repeat because we didn't want it repeating continuously. And then we also defined the pseudo class colors for the hyperlinks that we have going on here. And we talked about padding. Let's bring this back into view here. We talked about padding and how to move the text over and center that and so forth. We also talked about how to center the content using margin :0 auto. And we also talked about how to insert a blank non-broken space so that we can have this whole content centered within this wrapper object. So that's our site. And if you have any other questions, just send me an email.